Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom, the podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. Today's guest, I have Hazel, also known as Hazel the Writer, out there on all the social medias, and I'm so excited to have her join us today. Hazel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
I've been looking forward to this for a couple weeks ever since we got together and scheduled, and here we are now in March, and your episode comes out at the end of April. So you're the anchor for the month of April. You've got a lot of stuff that we here at the podcast, meaning me, really enjoy getting to talk about. A lot of the two topics that we'll be mainly talking about today are one of the ones that is like heavily talked about, and I always love getting to know people's perspectives on them. So we're going to dive right into the big one, and I will say I guess I'll put a spoiler tag up just in case. If you haven't watched WandaVision, I don't know how much we'll be touching on it, but just in case, spoiler tag, maybe spoilers for WandaVision. But Hazel, you are a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I actually that was one of the first fandoms that I really got into and have stuck with. So yeah, it's a big part of my nerdy side.
How did you first fall in love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, was it with Iron Man back in the day, or was it with a different movie? Like, where did you come in at, and how did it tug at your heartstrings?
So throughout my childhood, I always had a habit of like firmly disliking something until I finally started, getting into it, and then I'd be like, oh, actually, it's not that bad. I did it with Harry Potter. I did it with musicals. I've done it with a ton of things throughout my childhood. And the MCU kind of was a little bit in that way. I wasn't necessarily 100% against it. I do remember seeing the first Iron Man movie at my uncle's house a couple of times. Like we go for a movie night, and that was a popular movie. But I came from a household that didn't watch movies that much, just because my mom's not a movie person. So she had nothing against movies. She just wasn't into them, so it wasn't really something that she did like with us. So my first movie I actually went and saw in theaters in the MCU was Captain America with the Winter Soldier.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it was very good. And I was very, very interested in the whole plot line. I had watched some of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before that, and I feel like I'd seen some of the Marvel stuff beyond that, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on TV and got me kind of into learning more about the movies. And then Winter Soldier obviously ties into the first two seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., at least, the first two canon seasons. And so I got really into the Marvel Universe through that movie. And then from there, I watched Captain America: The First Avenger and just fell in love with Peggy Carter. She's like one of my all-time favorite characters, a huge, inspiration in my life. And I do cosplay her, not as much as I would like to cosplay her, but yeah, so that's kind of the focal point of my MCU interest.
Okay. So I have to say, like, the Captain America Winter Soldier movie is one of my top five of the Marvel movies. It's one of those where at any point it could be number one, maybe it could be number three next week, but it is a just is so darn good. I love that movie.
Yeah, I really enjoy that movie a lot. I mean, it was the first one that got me really into the MCU as a whole, and then just, I mean, the movie has still, throughout watching all the new ones, like rewatching Marvel movies, it's always held a pretty high spot in my ranking.
Okay, so I have to ask because I'm curious now, especially with going back and watching Captain America: First Avenger. Peggy Carter, I assume you watched her show.
Yes, yeah. So I watched Agent Carter. I was devastated when they canceled the show after two seasons, and left quite a big cliffhanger on season two for those. Like, I don't know how many people watched the show, but I loved that TV show so much. It was such a great piece of like Marvel television, and I felt like it just gave so much story to Peggy.
What is it about Peggy Carter that draws you to her character?
I like how kind of unapologetically herself Peggy is in many ways. And at the same time, she's not necessarily, I mean, she's not going to be as in your face as, say, Captain Marvel, who I also do adore, but they just got such different personalities. And just the way Peggy kind of stands for what she believes in and does her best in her field, despite not always being appreciated and not always being, applauded for her work. She still does the best that she can do. And I've just always, admired her. And she was my first cosplays because I felt I look somewhat similar to the MCU version of Peggy Carter. So when I first started cosplaying, that was important to me, not so much anymore. But yeah, so Peggy just has always kind of stood out to me as a good role model in many ways. And that scene in First Avenger where she just decks that guy that's mouthing off to her, while violence shouldn't be the first answer, it was still a pretty empowering movie scene.
I always am amused at the scene. It's her in the Jeep, and everyone's trying to climb the flagpole, right,
Hmm.
or get up to the top of the flagpole, and Steve Rogers is just like does the smart thing, gets it, and they hop into the Jeep, and there's that look, like she gives a certain look, and it's just like, this is the type of person that we need, rather than a bunch of what we don't need that fail to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think she's a very insightful character too in many ways. And a lot of times I feel like her intelligence is kind of overpassed in a lot of the animations of her character. But like she started as a code breaker in the MCU, like, universe. That was her first job to get her into the SSR and that kind of thing. And she's just shown throughout the TV show and the movies that she's very intelligent and looks at situations with a critical eye. And also, I loved the way that her and Steve interact throughout the first Avenger movie and subsequent movies. Just the way that she doesn't, judge him for, as many people did, for his smaller size, and he didn't seem like that much, but she was able to look beyond that. I really love the scene when there was the dummy grenade, and he runs after the grenade, and you can actually see Peggy is also running towards the grenade, not away. Like the rest of the folks were. I feel like that was a really impactful scene too, where Peggy started to notice like, wow, okay, Steve really has something different than the rest of these guys.
Absolutely. And I know when Endgame was shown, and you got to be like, "Oh, look, there's Peggy Carter's name." And is like, can we have more? Can we have more of this? Like, where is this part of the show, of movie, or give me more. I would love
Yeah.
to see more of her in the early infancy of Shield. That would be something I'd enjoy.
Yeah, I'd love to see that too. Like one of the big things too I loved about Agent Carter was Peggy and Howard's interactions, and of course with them founding Shield together, a TV series or some kind of media content about that would be really cool and fun to see.
With the Marvel Cinematic Universe, obviously there's tons of movies, TV shows, but beyond Peggy Carter or Agent Carter, and with the Captain America Winter Soldier, do you have any other like favorite movies or favorite characters that you kind of look to and you're like, that I like this section of the MCU?
Let's see. I'd have to think about that a little bit because there's so many good movies. I mean, just so many things in the MCU. Let's see. I mean, I mostly focus on the Captain America trilogy, like that whole series. I also really adore Lady Sif from the Thor movies, and I feel
Okay.
like she does not get as much screen time. I think before Thor Ragnarok came out, there was like rumors going around that Jamie Alexander was actually in the movie, even though she wasn't. No, she was in the credits, but she didn't actually end up in the movie. They cut the scene she was in. So the
Hmm.
whole movie, I was waiting for Sif to, still be in the Thor trilogy. And she wasn't there. I love Valkyrie, but Lady Sif has always been like another character that I really adore in the MCU. And of course, she's one of the smaller characters. But
I have to say, I as a person for movies and TV shows, I trend towards like my favorite characters being like the sidekicks and the
mhm.
background characters. I'm always like that person that's like, "Oh, who do I like in that show?" And then I'll name the person, and they're like, "Who?" Oh, the character that's in there for like literally 2 minutes. Like, I love them.
Mhm.
That's who I love. With Lady Sif, I do enjoy her character, especially obviously in the first movie. I know that she showed up in Agents of Shield in an episode.
I think
I
she was
heard,
in two at some point. It's been a long time.
yeah, I stopped Agents of Shield at a very
Mm.
early time, and then never picked it back up. I heard it. I think she's in this new Thor movie, if I'm not
I feel
mistaken.
like I've heard about that. After Ragnarok, though, I'm trying not to get my hopes up because, like, again, she was listed in the credits on like before the movie came out. I'd look up the cast list, and Jamie Alexander was on the list. So I was like, oh, sweet, she'll be in this movie. And then nothing. She like her scene she was in got cut out of the movie. I don't know what happened there, but like she was listed. I go check the cast list after the movie's already out, and she's no longer on the list. So I was like, I know she was there because I was looking. But yeah, so she's like one of my favorite characters. A lot of people don't like Thor the Dark World. I actually thought Thor the Dark World was pretty good. And yeah, but Jamie Alexander is one of my like favorite actresses in the MCU, and then her portrayal of Sif is really really cool. So
Absolutely, I like that. There's the Warriors 3 and then Lady Sif, and I like that. Like she's equal. I like that she's like right on their level and maybe even better than them. And you just get the desire of I want more. Show me more. And that's always with a lot of the Marvel movies is okay. You've given me a taste,
hmm
but I need like another 10 hours, another 12 hours with these characters.
hmm
Now, on the thing that you sent to me, because as many people that listen to the podcast know, I send out a questionnaire and people send it back with their answers. And one of them intrigued me, which is I asked about like if you have an underrated character, and you said you'd have to say the MCU Carol Danvers, and I'm really curious about that as a underrated character.
So I mostly, I don't know, maybe I'm just in too toxic of an area of the fandom on that side, but I'm constantly seeing a lot of hate on Carol Danvers and from Captain Marvel in general. Partially it's because I also work in the film industry on indie small films. I've met a lot of guys that work, alongside me that just hate on the Captain Marvel movie a ton. And I don't know, I made a statement a while ago to one of my friends. I was like, you know what, I'm kind of overhearing men's opinions on if Captain Marvel is a female empowering movie. You could complain about cinematography, you could complain about the male characters, anything. I don't care. But I'm done with cis men saying like Captain Marvel is not an empowering female movie because I'm like, you don't know though. So I just feel like a lot of times like Carol Danvers is kind of, she's not put up as where she should be at necessarily. One of my issues too is a lot of times I've heard people say she's arrogant and cocky and like they don't like that. I'm like, but so is Tony Stark, and like you guys love Tony Stark, so what's the deal here, guys? But yeah, so that's one of my things, and I think like personally, in my opinion too, I feel like Captain Marvel is confident rather than arrogant, because she really does have, I mean, she has the ability. So, and then another big argument I always bring up people to, I'm not a big fan of Superman. I've never been a big fan of Superman personally. I think there has been good tellings of his story, but just in general, like I feel like in many ways, like we're gonna say a superhero is overpowered. I'm like, I mean, Superman and Captain Marvel, same powers, like same level of powerfulness, and yet one's doing the whole galaxy and one's doing Earth. Like, well, we're scared of the powers there. So that's kind of why I feel like Captain Marvel was a little bit underrated in many ways, just because a lot of people, there was just so much flack before the movie came out, after the movie came out, during the movie. I'm glad that she does have our fans, and there are a lot of people out there that still appreciate the character. But I've just heard so much complaints about this character, and it just kind of like irks me.
I I have to agree, and I think it's because I spend a lot of time on like Facebook and Twitter, and I always see it, and it's always something like like with Captain Marvel, and then to some degree with a few of the other movies, but not as much. But it's
hmm
because it's Captain Marvel, the first female led Marvel movie, and the way that she carries herself. And you are totally right. People might say arrogant. On the flip side, you had said confident, and you put it right up there with like Tony Stark. Like Tony Stark is in much ways way worse
Yeah.
than
Well,
than Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers is like, come on now.
yeah, and one of the things too, like I've seen people like when I also heard the complaints, like when I compare Tony Stark and Captain Marvel, I'm like, you can't praise one and condemn the other. You're like, yeah, but he actually has a story arc. I'm like, yeah, but he also had the entirety of the MCU to have a story arc. She's had one movie so far. Like, give her time to come into herself. Like Tony was not an evolved character by the end of Iron Man 1. He had changed, he had grown, but like his whole character arc took multiple movies, not just the three Iron Man movies, but throughout the whole MCU. When he was in, the various Avengers movies, Civil War, all these other movies, like we had so much time with Tony Stark to develop his character. And so like I just yeah, in many ways I feel like as much as people love Captain Marvel, there's plenty of people that love the character. It's one of those things where every time I see the complaints, it's just it's like a trigger.
I would not fault you at all about that. And shockingly, I say shockingly, which I don't mean shockingly, but looking at the casting so far for the sequel movie, it is incredibly loaded with a bunch of wonderful, not only characters that we're going to have, but talent behind the characters. And I'm so looking forward to seeing what they do with Captain Marvel's storyline, along with Monica Rambeau,
Mhm.
and Kamala Khan is supposed to be in there after she debuts in her TV series, and I'm over the moon about this movie because in many ways I'm just excited to see where they go and what they do with it.
Mhm. Yeah, I will say I do think that some of the opinion on Captain Marvel has changed slightly since like Endgame coming out. I mean, in many ways that also triggered all the, the haters. But like I always also have an issue like so I think without a doubt Wanda and Carol are probably some of the strongest Avengers. And I don't think that's just because, they're trying to empower women. I think it's because they have the powers from Infinity Stones. We're told throughout the MCU the Infinity Stones are like massively powerful will kill most mortals that come in contact with them. And so it's not a surprise that the two most powerful Avengers are the two that got their powers directly from Infinity Stones. So.
Absolutely. I mean, you make a very legitimate point, especially with what we saw coming out of WandaVision with Wanda and how she obtained some of like her powers amplified essentially
Mhm.
with the stone, and then Carol with the stone. It's it's really surprising, and they are two of of the MCU. Those two stand on the shoulders of everyone else. Like those two, I just hope if we ever get a movie with them, hopefully they're on the same side and not fighting against each other,
Yeah.
because that's a high level fight right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So.
Last thing with the Marvel universe that I'm just curious about is that last year was a wash with nothing coming out.
Mhm.
Everything got held off and delayed. We're starting to get stuff coming out now. What are you most looking forward to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it be something on Disney Plus or in the movie releases? What's on your plate of I'm looking forward to this?
So I've been looking forward to the Black Widow movie for the longest time. I think everyone at this point is just itching. I mean, it got moved back to November and now it's moved back to May. I'm hoping it stays on track. It seems like it hopefully should with the vaccine around the corner. But so that was like on my main list. After watching WandaVision, though, now I'm also very excited to see Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. I think that's going to be um, a good, I'm excited after WandaVision to see what they do with that part of the universe and expanding the multiverse and expanding, adding more characters to it. I'm still really disappointed by I mean, as many people are kind of let down on having Evan Peters in WandaVision. Because I was like, oh, is this how they're finally going to bring in the X-Men? Because I've long since said you can't just fold the X-Men into the MCU. Of course, this was before we saw the reality bending powers of Wanda and the multiverse options that have been brought up recently. And so I was excited for that because I was like, oh yeah, that is a way they could fold in the X-Men universe without totally breaking, continuity. So I'm really excited for the Doctor Strange movie. I'm also really excited for the fourth Thor movie. I think that's going to be a good branch into bringing more female characters into the MCU and into the spotlight. So yeah, those are kind of like my top three movies I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. I know I'm looking forward to all three. The wait though from WandaVision to Doctor Strange, that year gap, because WandaVision wasn't supposed to be the first thing that we were supposed to see. We were supposed to have it like almost at the knocking at the doorstep of the Doctor Strange release,
Hmm.
and yet here we are. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. We had Marvel Cinematic Universe as a huge fandom, and I'm just gonna say right now, like the fandom that we're going to talk about now is probably one of my favorite fandoms, one of my favorite shows, series, comics of the ones that I've read. I know that they have books out now. They are, I think, they're making a tabletop role playing game now. Is
Oh, I
finally
hadn't heard
like,
about that.
yes, that just got announced. I think a month or so ago on Twitter. I saw the announcement. So we're going to talk about the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes, I'm very excited. I adore just the whole universe. I'm super excited about the Avatar Studios announcement too, that just broke. I actually thought it was fake news at first when I heard it. I was like, wait, what? No, this can't be true.
Right, like that, because the last I heard with the creators is that they had left the Netflix project, the Netflix
hmm
live action series, because of differences in opinion, and how it is changing from what they had wanted to do, which totally understand. Like
hmm
if they're not doing what you want them to do, go ahead and leave. And I had the same thing because I frequent Twitter and I always see the trending topics, and generally I lean towards the oh, this is fake, this isn't real, and then I'm over the moon excited to see what they plan to do with
hmm
the world.
Yeah, I really Avatar content. Just every time there's new Avatar content, I need to see it and watch it immediately.
Now, how did you first get into Avatar: The Last Airbender?
So my cousins were really into it. Growing up, I was a public access network kid, so like we only had PBS really, and ABC, like just public access channels. I had seen a couple episodes here and there, like at my cousin's house, and they were super into the TV show. But because like it was just infrequent episodes here and there, I didn't really get into it until I don't know how old I was. I think I was in middle school or something when it finally came to Netflix. And that's when my brothers and sisters and I, because we were like, oh, like our cousins love this. It must be good. Let's try watching it. And so we started watching it. And my dad actually, he always complains because I don't know if he's actually gone back and rewatched it yet, but he said by the time that he started watching it with us kids, we like to do this thing where we would just watch random episodes. Like we had already seen the whole thing and we just would go through them like, oh yeah, I like this episode. Let's rewatch this one. And so he didn't ever see the TV show like all, in order. He would just catch random episodes when my siblings and I would watch them. And so he's always complaining about that when we talk about Avatar, and I don't think he's ever gone back now and rewatched it. So I got into it when it came on Netflix, basically. After my cousins were obsessed with it, I think we played as kids before we even saw the Avatar TV series. We'd play like make believe with our cousins. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, like you can be this kind of bender," and we're like, "I don't know what that means, but okay." So.
What one of the obvious questions that I have to ask when it comes to fandoms like this is, if you had bending powers, what kind of bender would you be?
I definitely think I'd be a firebender. I never used to believe in zodiac signs, but I always got annoyed because when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were into it, and they were like, "Oh, you don't believe in zodiac signs? Well, what's your zodiac sign?" And I wouldn't want to tell them because I knew that despite me not believing in it, I was like to a T my zodiac sign. I'm an Aries, and so with my Aries zodiac signs, like I'm an Aries, but that doesn't prove anything. And so, but yeah, I definitely would be a firebender, like without a doubt. Because yeah.
I got that. I know a few Aries, and I told like they always without a doubt, like the Aries that I know line up to their astrological sign, like straight up and down. They check all the boxes, and I it's just I don't know how to put it in any other way than just it's something to see and be like, I can't believe you're this way, but you are, and
Yeah.
you're just like what it says you're supposed to be. Or
Yeah. It was my greatest annoyance as a teenager. Now I'm somewhere on the fence on zodiac signs. I'm like, I don't know, maybe, but I don't, yeah. My only like argument is usually like my dad is a Leo sign, and he's not at all like a Leo at all. So I'm like, that's my proof. Like I might fit my signs, but I know other people that don't. But because of that, I mean, yeah, I am a fire sign and I do fit my sign very well, and I think I would probably definitely be a firebender. So
okay. I know, and you talk about your dad having to deal with with you all jumping back and forth on the episodes. When I was watching them on Nickelodeon, I'd never be able to watch it
mm.
like every week or whenever the episodes were coming out. So I'd catch it one week, and then it'd go by, and I'd see some other episode. And I was like, I don't know how they got from there to here, but okay. And I think it took until until it might have been Netflix or it might have been like a DVD release or something where I
Mhm.
finally got to watch them all in order. And it's what Nickelodeon and the creators and the writers did of not talking down to kids and
Mhm.
not sugarcoating stuff. Like they deal with a lot of like heavy topics right off from the start, whether it's Aang in the air temple that they go visit in the first time, and there's skeletons and dead bodies of people that he knows, and just they approach it and they deal with it as they do. And it's just such an amazing show that has storylines connecting all through the three seasons, and
Mhm.
it's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's really I love the whole Avatar universe. I think they did a really good job of just tying everything in. It's just so well thought out and developed. Just yeah, so many things connect. And just hearing like especially looking at the parallels between Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think they did. I know Legend of Korra gets a lot of flack, but I think they still did a pretty good job of kind of it feels like it's the same universe. You definitely feel that connection.
100%. I know a lot of the flack that Korra gets. There's a number of reasons. Number one, like female protagonist, just
Mhm.
like Peggy Carter. That's neither here nor there because I feel like people just like to pick on women in media. But with Legend of Korra, they had originally only planned for the one season. Like
Yeah.
that's all they had. Like they were telling a whole story within the one season that they had, and then they're like, "Oh, you're picking us up for more episodes. I guess we have to figure out what we're doing." And
Mhm.
I always say like I like the first season of Korra. I do tend to like it more as it goes on in the future seasons, where I'm like, okay, I'm really invested in the character now. And I'm
Mhm.
really digging like the all the characters that they bring into her, like into her sphere, and it's such a great slash underrated series.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think a lot of times, I think Legend of Korra kind of suffers from the fact that a lot of the times, people watching the TV series don't understand some of the history behind the TV series. Like, for example, season one and two are both planned as standalone seasons, and seasons three and four actually were, both those seasons were planned at once. So that's why there's more of a gap, bridging the gap there. I also like a lot of the times there's a lot of flack in the TV for Legend of Korra on queer baiting, which I think in many ways people forget that Legend of Korra came out prior to 2014, and prior to 2014, the United States viewed the LGBT community as a very political topic. And so a lot of people forget that, Nickelodeon, Avatar had to stay on network, and to do that, they had to be kind of on the subtle side, and that Legend of Korra paved the way for, post 2014 TV shows like Shiva to, branch more into the LGBTQ community and representation, that kind of thing. And so in many ways, I feel like Legend of Korra suffers from having kind of a complicated history in when it was coming out and how it was coming out. And in many ways, that makes people judge it on things that were kind of out of control of the creators of the show.
Right, like they took the last couple episodes of Korra, they wouldn't even put them on Nickelodeon. They put them on the website that you
Hmm.
had to watch the final episodes on their Nickelodeon site rather than them having it on the network for people to watch.
Yeah, and of course that was all still like even the last few episodes was still way more subtle than say Shiva, which I mean again it's coming out post the 2014 legislation on gay marriage, which yeah, just I feel like a lot of people forget that when they go and look back at Legend of Korra, they're like, oh, well they could have done more. And it's like actually they really couldn't.
Right? Like they can do as much as they can until the network is like, okay, you either do it the way we want you to do it or you don't get a show. And
Yeah.
I mean, they took the hit with what like small things that they did, and I hate that people are like, oh, especially when it's like they could have done what, and you said they really they couldn't. They were in that position, and that's all they could do.
Yeah. And so yeah, a lot of the times like again I can always I do say when I'm talking to people about Legend of Korra, like especially people that are like, oh I just don't like Legend of Korra. I'm like, well, I like Legend of Korra, but I can also say like Avatar: The Last Airbender in many ways will always hold a special place in my heart. compared to Legend of Korra. Like I don't think Legend of Korra is a bad TV show, but I can agree, and I do think that the initial TV show, The Last Airbender, in many ways just sits at its own level. But I think
Oh,
it's that way amongst many TV shows.
absolutely. And I tell people that all the time with Avatar. I don't say it's like one of the best kids shows. I say Avatar is like one of the best TV shows of
Hmm.
all time because it ranks up there with characters and storytelling and just everything falls into place with that show. And
Hmm.
even my favorite character, which is Uncle Iroh, I consider Uncle Iroh as a character one of my favorite characters of all time because I love everything that was done with his character.
I think that, yeah, I also really think Avatar: The Last Airbender does a fantastic job of covering how diverse characters can be in many ways and how diverse their like desires and can be, and as well as covering change. So like I think Zuko honestly has one of the best
Hmm.
villain to hero arcs of any character in any media. Like just the whole arc he goes through, and he has such a his past is so well fleshed out and gives him so many good things. And it doesn't the TV show never goes about trying to justify his actions because of his bad past, but they go to show like how his bad past has contributed to his actions. And the fact that he's able to come back from that and realize that he's made a mistake and try his best to come back from to do better. Despite even facing a lot of backlash when he tries to come to the good side. I mean, Katara gives him such a hard time when he drains, and she's not without her reasons, but
Right.
in many ways, like he's still doing his best, and I think it's also really impressive to see because like season one Zuko never could have done what season three Zuko did, and so the character growth there is just such an amazing part of the TV show, and Uncle Iroh's role in that entire process is also just a fantastic spot. And I think Uncle Iroh also helped not just Zuko but many people work through some issues they might have been struggling with.
Absolutely. Who's your favorite character in the series or in the world?
In the general world, it's definitely Kyoshi. I just finished my Kyoshi cosplay, and she's just been in my list for a long time. From the very first time they mentioned Kyoshi on the episode on the island of Kyoshi, I was like, that is cool. So in the whole world, it's definitely Kyoshi, and then within the Avatar: The Last Airbender TV series, it's Suki. So
Yeah, I love people that they shout out these characters like Suki, like because Suki's not there all the time, but I
hmm.
I love her interactions with the group. I love like that she got to be more in the group like at season 3. God, like she's such a great character, and I wish
Yeah.
we'd been able to see more of like her or the Kyoshi warriors more in like Korra and see what happened with them. But it's Korra's story, not Aang's story, and
Hmm.
not the Aang gang.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I love Suki as a character. I like her and Sokka's interactions a lot too, and I really adore just the whole, relationship with each other. That first episode with Sokka, I mean, again, talk about character growth. Sokka starts the episode off being all, "Oh, well, you couldn't have ambushed us," and then he is able to come forward and realize that he might have been a little bit blinded, by his, previous experiences, and he actually is willing to be, listening to Suki and learn from her and treats her with respect and realizes that she has a lot that she could teach him. And I think that was an amazing episode, especially for a kids TV show. I always love to see men in TV shows that can be, I think a lot of times, I mean, we start with all this. I host panels occasionally at cons when we had cons about women's stories in the media. And one of the things I like to touch on during those is like how it's not only important that we see like women that are feminists, but that we see that men that are feminists in TV shows, and more so just in their actions than their words. And so I think Sokka in many ways does kind of end up fitting that arc where he is able to support the women's life. And I also like to point out like we don't just need like you know we used to have the only men that would support women tended to be kind of on the wimpier side. They were more smart than they were athletic. They were more like they tend to be scrawny. I mean, look at Steve Rogers, how he started out. Look at Milo from um, Velocity of Atlantis. We had those kind of characters that would support women, but we didn't really see that from the more manlier characters. And I'm really happy that we're starting to see more of those characters, like Kristoff, like Sokka, like all these characters. I mean, Steve Post Serum. that kind of thing. So I really loved that episode, Sokka and Suki, just a lot. And then every time since then that Suki comes in the TV show, I'm always like, yay, it's a Suki episode.
Now, out of curiosity, because you mentioned Kyoshi and you got the cosplay of Kyoshi that you finished,
Hmm.
uh, did you read the book that's come out about Kyoshi? And if not,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
okay, how was it?
It was really good. I love the book series. There's two books in it. When I first found out about the book series, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to read this now. And actually, I ordered the book on Amazon, but then there was like shipping delays because this was right around the same time that the Avatar series came back to Netflix and everybody was watching it, and you couldn't get any comics, you couldn't get any books. They were all back ordered like ridiculously long. So it was gonna be like a week or two delay, and I just could not wait. And I kind of justified myself. I was like, I already paid for the book. Like I paid for the book. I'm gonna go find a PDF online. And so I read the book and just adored it. I think the actual physical book arrived like I don't know, a couple. I had like a couple chapters left, so I switched to the actual book at that point. But I really adored those books. I felt like they added so much to the Avatar universe. And one of my favorite things about that, I don't know, like when I talked to my husband about this, he kind of was like, "Oh no, I like got that from the start. I didn't need the books for that." But they really go into detail about the Fire Nation because, like one of Kyoshi's her girlfriend in the series is from the Fire Nation, and they kind of make a really big point of talking about the top knot that the Fire Nation, citizens wear, and how
Hmm.
important culturally that is to them. And I kind of missed that throughout the TV show. Like I never picked up on how important the top knot was. But like they really, make an emphasis in the books about how like the top knot is tied to their honor. And I was like, that added a whole new depth to that scene in The Last Airbender where Iroh and Zuko cut off the top knots. And, it's like, I was like, wow. So apparently, though, that was, you could tell that in some ways, at least my husband picked up on that without the Kyoshi books. But for me, that was a big thing that kind of deepened my understanding of the whole universe as a whole. And then beyond that, Kyoshi's also just such an interesting avatar. She has a very unique story, which they go into in the Kyoshi novels. So, and I'm going to be kind of vague because I know not many people have read the books yet, and I want people to discover that for themselves.
Yeah, it's on my list. The books are on my list of books to read because as you said at as we started talking about Avatar, like the whole Avatar, like everything, like I just want everything. Give me everything,
Yeah.
and it's just fitting it into the time that I have
Hmm.
to consume it and be like, okay, I got it now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just love it. I'm really hopeful too. I've always thought it'd be cool to see, more content about previous avatars. So we kind of get like the Kyoshi novels. Now that there's Avatar Studios, though, I'm really hoping that we get like a movie or a TV series or something that goes into like Roku and Kyoshi's and Kurok's and Ying Chen's lives. Just because I think they have really interesting stories, and being able to see more avatars might even help the whole Korra versus Aang debate to be like, no, like each avatar has their strengths and their differences. That's the point. It's a yin and yang cycle. Like they're supposed to be different from each other.
Gosh, I that is that is one fandom debate that I just can't like I can't with the who's the better avatar. Like you can't compare them. It's
Yeah,
like
they're all. I mean, they're basically all the same person in many ways too. But like they're supposed to be different. Um. So yeah.
and I was going to ask you, you already did my follow-up question about like what are you looking forward to with the new Avatar
Oh
Studios?
yeah.
What do you want from it? But you already knocked that question out. You already
Yeah,
got
yeah. I want to see more about the previous avatars. The Kyoshi novels. I had wanted it before the Kyoshi novels, but those just really like awakened a deeper appetite for this. So
yes. I need more. I just need more of everything. Just
yeah.
give me like give me a little bit of the earlier avatars. Give me some like, hey, what did Sokka do in between the end of the war and his death? Because we didn't get to see him really in Korra at all,
Hmm.
except for in a picture. Um, give me like a something with Toph because Toph is hilarious and
Mm,
just give me everything.
yeah.
I don't care. Give me the rise and fall of the Cabbage Empire. Like
Yeah.
I would take that.
Yeah, I'll watch anything that they come out with, honestly. I mean, everything's been out of this park already, so I have full faith that, they'll continue doing great work with the Avatar universe.
Now we have a smidgen of time before we're going to jump into cosplay, and there's a fandom that you said that you are rather passionate about, something that you've recently discovered, and I want to just talk just for a little bit, just
Mhm.
for a smidge, about the Pixar Cars universe.
Yeah, so I didn't realize I was a big fan of this fandom until I met one of my very close friends, Aurora, and we were talking, and we kind of just like immediately hit it off. And I don't know how the topic came up, but somehow the Cars movies came up. I think it was about Cars 2, and I was immediately like, that is not canon, and was very passionate about talking about the Cars movie. She's like, wow, you're a really big Cars fan. I was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, oh, wait, crap, I think I am a really big Cars fan. Um, And so from there, I kinda just it became almost a joke. I actually really did start to scare. I was like, "No, actually, yeah, I really do love the Pixar Cars universe." And I need to clarify, when I say Cars 2 isn't canon, it is technically canon, but I feel like it's more like Mater's Tall Tales canon, like, the things that happen in Cars
Right.
2 did not actually happen in the real life aspects of the Cars universe. It's one of Mater's stories that he made up. Um, but yeah, so I found I was really passionate about Cars, and somewhat around the same time, there was a big thing going on TikTok where people would be like, "Oh, well, because there's a call Pope, that must mean there's a call Jesus, and because of this, there must be a cause like 9/11." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa."
That's some
So
extremist. Whoa.
yeah, I was like, "Whoa, whoa," and I'm a big subscriber to the Pixar theory. And so like within the Pixar theory, the whole idea is that because like we know from Toy Story that not calls that toys can come to life because of the love of their kids. And so like is it really a stretch that like the love that people have for their calls? I mean, people name their calls all the time. That they can make their calls come to life. And so in the Pixar theory, the calls universe happens while the humans are off world on the Axiom before Wally, and the
Hmm.
calls kind of, are waking up and taking on the personalities of their drivers and interact with each other. And so I'm like, and because of that, there would not be a call Jesus because Jesus did not drive a call. And that was pre-calls, guys. So yeah, I discovered I was really passionate about it, but I do really adore calls 1 and 3, because a big thing I love seeing is just character development. Character development is a huge thing that draws me to media. And from calls 1 to calls 3, the main character Lightning McQueen has so much character growth. So like everything that Lightning McQueen does at the end of calls 1, he never would have done at the beginning of calls 1. He really changes like dramatically. Same with calls 3, like he's grown a lot since Calls 1, but he still ends up doing something in the movie that he never would have done at the beginning of the movie. He just did not have the character growth to do what he does at the end of the movie at the beginning of the movie. And so I love the Cars universe. It actually does though. It's one of the biggest disagreements between my husband and I. My husband hates the Cars movies. He cannot stand them. I think he's watched the Cars 3 movie once because I asked him to. And he was like, "Yep, I watched it once. I'm good. Never again." So that's one of our biggest complaints. I do often kind of tease him that Calls 1 and Thor 1 are the same movie, which he does not like when I bring that up, but they have very similar plot lines. I mean, you have someone that's very full of themselves, thinks they're all that, related to lightning somehow, that ends up doing something kind of stupid, and lands them in a desert town in the middle of nowhere where they meet a woman who helps change their mind, and the people in this town help change their mind. And the movie comes and they get kind of like, they get to go back to everything they had, but they're forever changed by their interactions in that small desert town. Same movie plotline. So
Pretty much. You're blowing me away right now.
but yeah, so that's like I mean, Cars 3 and Thor Ragnarok are quite different. Those don't have really any connections to each other. But Cars 1 and Thor 1 are basically the same movie. My husband's favorite Marvel movie is Thor 1. And so just yeah, it's one of the things whenever he's complaining about cars, he's like, I really don't like cars. I'm like, well, but you do like Thor. And so but yeah, and it did end up leading to me cosplaying Lightning McQueen. So that was a joke cosplay and ended up being one of my more expensive cosplays because I got a little bit too into the idea a bit. I did draw the line. I put a stopper on this cosplay for a while because I wanted to get patches for my red motorcycle jacket, like he has the stickers. And then I found out that custom patches are really expensive. It was going to be like $600 to $1,000 to get all the patches. And
Woo.
that's why I was like, nope, I cannot spend that much money on a cosplay that's mostly a joke. Like that's just a non-starter. I ended up finding out that I could come up with the idea to print what I wanted for patches on a vinyl poster, which ended up being like $20. And I cut those out, and the vinyl was durable enough I could stitch through it with some embroidery floss. So that was my solution to not spending almost, $1,000 on patches. Uh, but yeah, so Cars Universe, my weirdest fandom that I'm very, very much into, that I only recently discovered like a year ago. So
I like how you tie it in with the Pixar theory, because it's a theory where I remember reading it, and just as I'm reading it, I'm like, no, no, like, but you're reading it, and as you're saying no, you're also saying, well,
well, yeah, it
oh,
does
I
kind of.
can see it. Okay.
Yeah, the Pixar theory, I first discovered it through the Super Calling Brother YouTube channel. They didn't come up with the theory, but they have done they've done a video that explains it really well. For anybody that's interested in learning more about the Pixar theory, the Super Calling Brothers YouTube channel, they have a great overall chain description of it in a video format. And they also tend to, every time a new Pixar movie comes out, they'll make a video about how it ties in. And there are a lot of people that try to debunk the Pixar theory, and there's definitely ways to debunk it, but as you know, this is what the Super Colin Brother channel says. It's just that like the theory does not exist to be debunked. It exists because it's fun to theorize. And to this day, I have no idea if Pixar, like, I wouldn't put it past Pixar, honestly, to be trying to pull something this elaborate off without actually saying it. But it could also be a coincidence. I mean, you just don't know with Pixar.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, Hazel, when I find people to do the podcast, I mean, there's a number of ways. Like, I'll find people on Twitter, and I'll find people on Facebook. But you and I guess, had been like, we have a couple mutuals,
Hmm.
that we follow each other on Instagram, and at some point we followed each other. And I know that the first picture that I liked of yours was one of my other favorite fandoms, which is Percy Jackson, the
Hmm.
Riordan verse, and you as Reina. And I was like, yeah, I'm down for people that cosplay as Reina, because I think Reina is one of those underrated characters that
Oh yes,
that
definitely.
that doesn't get enough love, and she should. Um, but you do cosplay, like you said. You got the Lightning McQueen, you got Reina, you've got a number of other characters. So how did you first get into cosplay? Like, where did that come from? Why do you do it?
So I first got into cosplay just because I've always loved Halloween. Halloween has always been like my favorite holiday because you could dress up, and I didn't really realize that you could dress up outside of Halloween. As a teenager or a young kid, I just like every October I'd be like, yes, I could finally dress up. And actually, one of my closest friends, she hates dressing up, but she would dress up every Halloween just because I was so like excited about it. And then my dad has a friend from his childhood that now does comic book artistry. His name is Jake Bear. And he does comic book illustrations. And so he'd come into Seattle every year to do Emerald City Comic Con, which is not terribly far from where we live. So my dad would get free tickets from his friend to come out and help his friend out. So my dad basically would watch the booth for a couple of hours every day so his friend could go experience the con. And the first year this happened, my dad brought my younger brother to the con because he had like one extra ticket. He was like, "Oh, okay, like I'll take my little brother." So my little brother went with my dad, and I think my brother dressed up as a Jedi because my dad was like, "Oh yeah, people dress up, and you're kids, so like it's cute if you dress up." Um, and then the next con season, my dad took my youngest sibling, and they had a great time. That was actually the year that Haley Atwell was at Emerald City Comic Con, and I was kind of jealous, but I was like, "Okay, he only has one ticket, and I'll be going next year." The next year rolls around, and my dad does not ask me to go to Comic Con with him.
What?
And I was so devastated. I was like, wait, what? And so I kind of was like fuming to my mom a little bit. I was like, I can't believe like dad just went to Comic Con without me. Like I thought it was gonna be like a surprise because my birthday is around Comic Con season. So I was like, oh, maybe he's just wait till my birthday to surprise me with tickets. Nope, never happened. He went without me. Uh, so I was very upset. And then the next year, though, like my mom's kind of, your dad's pretty oblivious. You kind of just have to ask him. And so I was like, oh, okay. So like that next year, like there's a year gap since he took my siblings 2 years in a row. I'm like, hey, are you going to Comic Con this year? And if so, can I come? Like, excuse me. And so he's like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, definitely could come. So I was really excited. I went for 3 out of the 4 days at ECC, and I like immediately knew I was like, this is a time when it's like socially acceptable outside of Halloween to dress up. so I'm gonna dress up. And so I think on Friday I went as just a random Shield agent. Like I didn't have a really a concrete idea on that one. I just like let's do a Shield agent. And the second day I did Peggy Carter, which was extremely fun. I did her blue iconic outfit from Agent Carter. I didn't have the red hat. I actually had a couple of people ask me, "Oh, where's your hat?" But I had a lot of fun doing Peggy on that second day. And then the third day I did Hermione Granger, because Hermione is also a character that I really associate with. I've been called a know-it-all many times throughout my life, and so Hermione was a character that I clicked with. But that's kind of where I started doing cosplay, was at that Comic-Con, and just seeing so many other people in cosplay really, inspired me. And then I actually I kept let's see, I kept doing I did go back to Comic-Con, not the next year, or maybe it was the next year. Eventually I went back to Comic-Con, and let's see, when was it? I think in 2018, no, 2019, my husband and I went to ECC together. And one of the days we went, we dressed up. I dressed up as Peggy Carter, and then he dressed up as Daniel Souza from Agent Carter. And I had more fun than he did, because admittedly most people didn't recognize who he was. Occasionally, when we were together, people would see me and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you're dressed as Peggy!" And then they'd see my husband like, "Wait, are you Daniel Souza?" And he's like, "Yeah." But so we did a couple of cosplays that weekend, and I just cosplaying became a thing that I just did at conventions. And then the pandemic hit, and when the pandemic hit, I had already been on TikTok for a little bit, but I really started doing more cosplays for TikTok. And that's kind of been what's been my motivation. So I've completed more cosplays in this last year because of TikTok than I ever did for conventions. And I also have found a really great group of cosplayers that I do live streams with in character, and that has also been a big motivator for doing cosplay. And just yeah, it's kind of like I guess my cosplayer origin story.
Da-na-na-na-na-na. You have come out origin story. Now let's get the next movie and sequels going on. What is it about cosplay that you love? Like, there you you got the costume, and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and money, depending on like the patches. I know for Lightning McQueen, what 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 is the driving thing? Like, what is it where you're like, yeah, like I'm going to do it, and not just for conventions, but like you said, like with your TikTok and everything, like.
So yeah, so with cosplay, like the biggest thing that kind of drives me, I guess now, is like before it was just a thing that I liked dressing up, and I think part of it was almost like some form of escapism in many ways, where it's like I just want to like live in this character's universe. I want to be like as cool as Peggy Carter is, and that kind of thing. And so that was one of the main reasons when I first started I first started being interested in dressing up was for Halloween, and then post that now doing conventions, that kind of thing. I had a lot of fun just again, getting kind of pretend like I'm that character, which is where TikTok kind of ended up being the perfect thing in many ways, because I've had so much fun trying to find like audio clips that fit a character to do on TikTok. And just, becoming the character is what really, really drives me. And that kind of ties into at the beginning of the pandemic, we're actually only, I think, like 2, 3 weeks shy of the year anniversary since I started doing character live streams. One of my friends that does Percy Jackson cosplays was kind of like, "Hey, I'm bored. Everyone else is bored. We just entered lockdown. How about like, what if we did one of those panels they do at conventions where you are in cosplay and you act like you're the character that you're cosplaying?" And like we did that online. And they were like, people were really interested, but they're like, "Actually, I'm not quite sure how to go. Like, I can figure it out, but I don't know how to go about doing a live stream." And I was like, "Hey, I'm kind of tech savvy. Like, mind if I give it a hand?" And that's kind of what started doing these in-character live stream stuff. And that's been really fun because again, I get to kind of dress up as this character and interact with people as this character. And we started out just doing Percy Jackson panels. And so most of our audience, that we grew was like in the range of 13 to like 17 years old. And just being able to, interact with people, they'd ask questions, we'd answer the questions, we'd set up funny little skits between characters. Just the community that it brought together was really amazing. And so that's, I think ultimately is what it boils down to, is the community building aspect.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about, what you're doing, that please correct me if I'm wrong. That is Storyverse Live. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah. So that is Storyverse Live. We started out on my YouTube channel, Hazel the Writer, just because I had tried doing YouTubing several years back, like 2016 or something like that. I had tried becoming a YouTuber and had not succeeded in any ways. But my channel was at a point where I could do live streaming, like that was approved. And so I was like, oh, okay, like we can use my channel then. So we started out just on my channel. I didn't really have like a set, cohesion behind it. It was just like these cosplayers, we're doing this together, we're using my channel. And then in January, we launched Storyverse Live, which is like its own platform now for doing these live streams. And we've branched out from just doing Percy Jackson, and we now do a couple different fandoms. We're opening up to doing different fandoms like Avatar: The Last Airbender, DC Comics, Disney, Harry Potter, Marvel, Narnia, Verse, She-Ra, and Star Wars. So those are the panels that we're kind of open to doing right now and trying to get cosplayers for and working on building up those characters. We haven't done a Star Wars panel yet just because of I think we have like 6 cosplayers that all signed up for that one. And 5 out of the 6 only do Leia. So we're like, oh, well, probably don't want to do a panel with just, 6 different versions of Leia. That might work, but not for our first Star Wars panel. But yeah, so that is Storyverse Live. It's doing in-character live streams. It's all cosplayer van. The most important part of that is having fun for me. And so we constantly make an effort to make it clear, like if somebody signs up for a panel and they need to drop out last minute, that's totally fine. We want it to be a fun, easy thing for cosplayers to do. And so it's very much about having fun. We also don't have kind of like, a lot of times those cosplay groups are like, oh, there can only be one Reina cosplayer. We're like, no, like as many as possible. We try not to do duplicates on the same panel, but like I've cosplayed Annabeth on a stream. Wait, a couple of my other friends have cosplayed Annabeth on streams. We just, anybody can cosplay any character they want on the live stream. So that's been a fun thing to do during the pandemic, and I'm glad that it stayed alive for about a year now. So
That's awesome. That's a really cool idea, and I love it. I'm gonna have to check more of it out and see what's going on because I find that fascinating, and it's something I definitely want to peek in and be like, "What y'all doing? What's going on
yeah,
here?"
yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. I've actually like some of my funnest things to be doing have been doing our Avatar: Last Airbender panels have been really fun because so I've read the Kyoshi novels. I try to, we keep it pretty basic on the panels because again, try not to spoil the novels, but I'm able to give more insight into Kyoshi's character because Kyoshi suffers from an issue of like fanon versus canon. There's a lot of fanon out there about Kyoshi that doesn't actually quite fit in with canon because most of her canon is very, very small that people have seen, with the novels being fairly new. And so I've
Hmm.
been able to kind of branch out her characterization a bit more on those panels. We haven't actually had an Aang on any of our Avatar panels. We've been making the joke each panel, like it's all characters from The Last Airbender and then Kyoshi. And so we make the joke like, oh, well, Aang's just really busy with, post saving the world organization. So he asked Kyoshi to sub in from the spirit world. But I've been able to answer like each panel we've done so far, we get the question of like, oh, who's your favorite member of like Team Avatar? And I always say like I'm going to say Aang, not because I'm obligated to, but because I really am proud of him, and I think that like his solution to the issue of Final Ozai was a really great one. And like I never told him to kill anyone. I just told him that justice, only justice brings peace, and he found a just way without killing. So because that's one of the big things in many ways, like people are like, oh, Kyoshi, she's like the bloodthirsty avatar. It's like, no, no, yeah, but no. A big thing they branch into in the Kyoshi novel is just in her general characterization is that like she gives people a second chance, but they only get 1 second chance kind of thing. So she's not the avatar that's going to be just keep letting people walk over her. She's like, no, like, okay, I think you can change, so I'll give you the chance. But if you don't change, we're going to have a problem here. And the only character she actually goes and kills are the characters that, she knows are not going to change, or have already had plenty of chances from her or other people. So anyways, that's just been a fun aspect of doing these panels is being able to build out these characters a bit more. We also have panel canon that diverges from actual, canon. There's a lot of head canons in our Percy Jackson panels that we, incorporate into the panels. But
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, with obviously last year 2020 conventions mostly went like online. There are some that are tentatively scheduled. I know some have canceled already, and some are like, okay, August, October, December. Maybe we'll have in person conventions again. Um, In the off chance that we do, and if you get to the comfort level, like what are your plans for not only your cosplay but for Storyverse? Like what are your future plans for both of those projects?
Yeah, so with the Storyverse Live, when we first started out just as a group of cosplayers doing panels for fun, it was at the beginning of the lockdown. Like everybody had basically just entered that 2 weeks of like, okay, I have 2 weeks off from work or school or what have you. Before work from home became a really big thing. And we all just kind of a lot of times on our hand and we were like, okay, well, let's do this. And we were all still at the same phase as most people were. Was like, oh yeah, this will be over by like April or like maybe somewhere at the latest. Obviously, that did not happen. So we were actually planning to go to Hallmat in Orlando that December. We were like, oh yeah, definitely by December things should be clear. We were all going to go together and like finally be able to meet up in person. And then obviously that kind of went downhill. So, but our future plans and like we do want to try to do like any panels that we can end up going to together. Like we want to try to get together and submit to like run panels at conventions. We actually, this is kind of, I can't say too much because it's not really much set in stone, these plans yet.
Hmm.
But I work in the event planning industry and production management and that kind of thing. And one of my close friends, we are actually trying to work on a Percy Jackson oriented Comic Con. We're currently looking at like Chicago because it's a fairly centralized location for air travel in the United States. But we're looking at trying to plan our own convention for a couple of years down the road. And so that's something that we're looking forward to doing, and that would be brought to you by Storyverse Live, using Storyverse Live as the capital starter on that. But yeah, so those are kind of like our plans with Storyverse Live, the conventions. For me personally, I'm just excited to eventually go back to doing conventions. I have my con list is kind of up in the air right now. I'm part of an Air Force family, so we move occasionally.
Hmm.
And I will be moving at some point in the next couple of months, probably before we go back to con season. So depending on where I move will depend on what cons I'll be trying to go to. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I grew up in an Air Force family. My dad was in the Air Force, so I totally understand.
yeah,
Like every like 2.5 to 3.5 years, it's like, okay, pack up, time to go.
yeah. You don't really know where you're going to be going either. So yeah, my husband's at tech school for the Air Force right now. So when he gets back, we'll be moving, which is in a couple months or so. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
And
so that'll depend on where I do cons, basically.
and I have to say, right there with you last year on, well, maybe we'll get to Hall Mat.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do like, it's in December and we're locked down in March, and well, they're talking about the pandemic, and a couple weeks, maybe a month or two,
yeah.
and then it started, like, just everything started falling, and like, okay, canceled, canceled. And because that's the convention, because we live in Orlando
Mm,
and we went to the 2019 Hall Mat, and my wife really loved it, and I enjoyed like the smallness of it, but it felt like really big, and I was like, okay, we'll be going back this year,
yeah.
2020 we'll be going back, and it's like, nope, not at
Yeah.
all.
Well, yeah, I was looking for actually I almost went to 2019 Hall Mat. I live over in Washington State, so complete opposite side of the country. But a lot of I had just started to get into the like cosplay community with Percy Jackson cosplayers. And
Hmm.
I found out, I don't know, 3, 4 days before Hall Mat that like a whole bunch of them were gonna be at Hall Mat. And I was like, that sounds really cool. And I looked up airline tickets and it was short notice, but I was like, I could fly there and back for like $200 round trip. That is not bad.
Whoa.
So, and I was like, especially for a last minute ticket. So I got very, very close to just, impulse buying that ticket and flying down. But I ended up deciding not to because I was like, like I don't really have a hotel plan. I have nothing planned. I'll just go next year.
Hmm.
Obviously that did not happen. But I was also, so Emerald City Comic Con is a con that I've been going to frequently. That's kind of been my main con. And that happens in March every year, until now. And so that we had our tickets for Emerald City Comic Con and our hotel packed. I had just been given, you know, given the clue to do a panel at ECC and everything as like a last minute sub in. Someone had called out and they're like, "Hey, are you still interested in presenting a panel?" And I was like, "Yes." And then COVID started coming out. I was like, "Oh, you know what? Not a big deal." And like ECC was one of those cons that it literally COVID was becoming a thing. I think a week, maybe 2 weeks before ECC was supposed to happen. So
Hmm.
they were having the whole time of crying going back and forth. I'm like, do we keep it going? Do we call it off? Like, what do we do? And they just, it was very, wishy washy. And there was people on both sides of it kind of being like, it's not safe, you need to call it off, or like, we've already bought our tickets, like, you need to keep it going, it's not that big of a deal. So there's just so many things, and I was kind of, it was still like, I was still in denial that COVID was going to be a big deal. And it's like, well, we'll just like, if it still happens, we'll go and we'll just quarantine ourselves for 2 weeks afterwards, like from friends and family, so that way if we bring home con crud, maybe COVID con crud, we don't give it to anybody. But ECC got called off, and around the same time that people are like, oh, okay, yeah, this is serious. I'm pretty sure the city of Seattle actually, finally made the call and said you need to call it off. Um, but yeah, and then ECC got pushed to August, and I was hopeful, and I was like, oh, yeah, by summertime we should be good. We can go to ECC. And then it didn't happen. They, canceled it all altogether. And then I think it was in January they made the announcement that they're going to be doing ECC, or they're trying to do ECC December 2021. So we'll see how that goes down. If it conflicts with Hallmat, if it doesn't, yeah. If Hallmat happens,
Exactly. It's like, okay, we're doing it again this year. Like,
yeah,
holding the breath.
yep.
We'll see though.
Yeah,
Cross
everybody's
some
just,
fingers.
waiting. Yeah, the last con I went to before the pandemic ended was a really small con over in, I can't remember what city it was in. It's over here in the Seattle area. It's called NerdCon, and it's just like a super, super small convention. I think there was like 200 people max there. But it was really nice. I had only really been to ECC up to that point, and so going to NerdCon was such a relaxed atmosphere to it. And
Hmm.
actually, I went to the con and worked the con as a cosplayer. So they were hiring a couple of cosplayers to come out and read storybooks to kids. So I got paid to come out as Scarlet Witch to that and do storybooks and read to kids and have fun. So that was really cool and a fun experience to do.
That is really cool. That is an awesome idea. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone doing that at a convention.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was just such a small convention, and I had seen it go up. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're lucky to pay some cosplayers to come do this," and I was like, "What? Like, that's cool." And from there, I actually started working. I haven't done too many. I only did one event with them because it was right before COVID hit. But I started working with Costume Carolers for Causes in Washington State, where they basically it's a network of cosplayers that go and do charity events. And so I did one charity event at a naval base near me at the commissary as again a Scarlet Witch. And that was super fun. We actually had a great experience where at one point we were standing outside because Santa, it was a wintertime thing. Santa was coming. And so we were there. Some members of the 501st Legion were there. I think there were some like Elsa and Anna cosplayers there. And we all went outside to go greet them. So the stormtroopers stood on one side and we stood on the other side, like waiting for Santa to come out. And while we're waiting for Santa, the fire truck hasn't pulled up yet. This little girl comes over. She like stops dead in her spots, looks at our group. It's me, Wanda, one of our cosplayers is Hawkeye, and then I think we had, let's see, I don't think we had anyone else besides our Iron Man cosplayers. So it was like the three of us. She stops dead, looks directly at us, and then comes full speed sprinting at our Iron Man character and like tackle hugs him basically. And she was just like, "Oh my gosh, it's Iron Man!" And was just so excited. So that was super fun to see. That event we also had Darth Vader was at the event as Bad Santa. So we had Santa on one side of the shopping mall, and then we had Darth Vader on the other side of the shopping mall, passing out lumps of coal to like the kids. And what was crazy was we were kind of, there to entertain the kids before Darth Vader got there, and there was way more kids in line for Darth Vader than for Santa Claus. Um, they were all very excited, and they're like, "When is Santa gonna, or when is Darth Vader gonna get here?" And we're like, "Wait, he's on his way." So it was a super fun event though, and like I wish I could have done more events with them, but then COVID hit. So
Crossing fingers for things to start getting back to the way, obviously changes, but get back and start doing like the that, especially that kind of stuff, because that
yeah,
I know that helps out a lot with kids, whether they're in the hospital or they just like different events, and it's like, yeah, like that's something good.
yeah. So that was really fun, and we've kind of been able to do that through the Storyverse Live stuff as well. One of my favorite things with the whole Storyverse Live is just a lot of people had kind of told us like, you guys are the reason I got through the lockdown basically, which was really cool to hear. So they were like, you gave me a reason to like, we did, I think we do, I'm pretty consistent. We've been doing 3 or 4 panels a week with Storyverse Live. And people have, been really impacted by that. And my favorite story with Storyverse Live comes down to, was when we were still just a ragtag group of cosplayers, but we got reached out to by, the dad of one of the girls that would watch our streams. And he was just kind of like, "Hey, like, I was just like, this is a long shot, but I wanted to know if you guys would be willing to, put together like a happy birthday video for my daughter. She's turning 14. She adores your guys' live streams. I'm trying to get something for her birthday. He was like, I was gonna try to find one of the celebrity meetup things that cons are doing instead of meet and greets in person. But he's like, but like you guys are her celebrities, so like, do you think you could do this? I could donate money to like one of the causes you support. And I was like, oh no, don't even think about donating money. And like, we got you. Who are her favorite cosplayers? Who's her favorite characters? Like, let me pull something together. Her birthday was on one of our regular stream days too, so we pulled together a panel of all her favorite cosplayers as her favorite characters, and we sent her a video basically saying like, happy birthday, like, hope your day was good. And that was just such a cool experience, and it actually ended up to be an even cooler experience because her dad is an actor, and he's actually now joined us as a live streamer. And it all started because he got on TikTok and started cosplaying as Mr. D from the Percy Jackson books. And TikTok fell in love with him as Mr. D. And then jokingly, we also run 24-hour charity live streams once a month. So we'll go and do a 24-hour stream. And that has been a really fun part. And we usually pull in some guest artists for that one. And so my like streamers were like, hey, could we invite Lonnie to come be on the stream as a cosplayer? And I was like, I mean, yeah, like I have his email. So he came off of that one, and now he's been a regular streamer with us. Has been really cool. So
that is awesome, and that is such a good story.
But yeah, so
now, Hazel, for the people that have listened to this podcast and they're like, I want to go check Hazel out, or I want to go check out Storyverse Live, where can they find you on the internet?
So I'm on a lot of social medias as Hazel the Writer, and then Storyverse Live is also on several social medias as Storyverse Live. And all of those links can be found, like we each have their own website. And so my website is hazelthewriter.hdmeyer.com. And then Storyverse Live is storyverselive.hdmeyer.com. And so all of our social links can be found on there, and you can find links to just everything you could possibly need. Storyverse Live is also linked to my personal one, the Hazel the Writer one. So everything can be found through there.
Okay, awesome. So what I'll do for people that are listening, click the show notes or on the Facebook page or website, and you'll have all the links to be able to go and check out Hazel or check out Storyverse Live and go from there and get into it, follow, watch, and stay tuned to see what they are going to come out with next, because I'm excited to see what's going to happen next.
All right, yeah, awesome.
And Hazel, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with me. I have had a tremendous pleasure getting to talk and not only hear about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Avatar, but also like the Cars thing. And, you know, if I ever have a Cars episode, I know who to come and talk to about Cars. But I had a wonderful time hanging out with you tonight.
Yeah, I did too. This was really fun.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.